Hello again everyone, welcome back, thanks for visiting once again, and back we are to the Miles M52, the final reveal I think most people call it, and I haven't got one of those twirly-whirly things. Well, I have one of those twirly-whirly things, but it goes a bit faster and is called a record player. So we'll just have to turn it round like that, by hand, shall we put it like that. So anyway, thanks all for tuning in everybody. If this is your first time coming along here, do please feel free to subscribe to the channel. I'd be most pleased if you did. It doesn't cost anything, but it does help the channel grow, so have a look in. Now this M52 is quite a rare model, but it is a resin cast or 3D resin printed model, and as such it didn't have very many parts to it, which means that it's, for many people, it'll be a very quick build indeed, a very quick project. In terms of its detail, it's pretty well detailed. Remember, this is an experimental aircraft. It got 80% built, and so what we do have to do is to imagine quite a lot of things out of this. For example, the cockpit detail, which you can sort of just about see if I sort of zero in on it a little bit. It's that's the combing in there that you can see, and a bit of a disaster I had with the super glue there, of course. But if we look in there, maybe you can just catch a little bit of the detail. Maybe, yeah, you can see the seat belts there, and possibly a little bit of the additional detail of the throttles there that I've put in. So you can see a little bit there, and looking in at the back, there's a little bit of detail there. I have to be careful of the pitot head. See if we can give you some light on that. You can't quite see it, but there is some detail in there that was 3D printed. But essentially, the kit itself is it's not bad. It goes together quite nicely. It's a slightly different technique in the sense that you're using super glue rather than extra thin. The stuff I used with this was the slow drying black cyanoacrylate, and essentially this is one of the joints here. If you just brush it on with a brush, and it goes into the joint, and then you can sand the joint away later on, and you don't lose any of the detail that you want. Some pointers to remember with this in particular is that 3D models are printed using a resin filament, which is it's rather like this, and this is stretch sprue, and the way that you make 3D printed models is that you print out the detail with a filament string, and you lay the filaments one on top of the other like that. So what you will get is a slightly ridged appearance. I mentioned this, I think, in the last video, but I'll reiterate it. So you get a slightly ridged appearance on the body of the model, which it's a very good idea, and this happens, by the way, on the fuselage parts and the wing parts as well. It's a very good idea to sand that detail off, because it will show through when you start to prime, and in certain lights you can actually still see some of that detail. You can't really see it at the arm's length that you're looking at here, but if I just zip into around here, we might be able to just see where I haven't quite sanded enough. If I just move that, you can just about see it. So I'm looking through the screen, you can just about see some ridginess there. I'll just point out to where I think you'll probably see it most, just in here. So it's a good idea to sand that away if you can, but once you've done that, you get a pretty good surface from which to work, and it looks quite good when painted. I've used a couple of paint shades. I used a mica silver here, and here, and a pale burnt metal there, and a dark metal there, just to give some extra detail, something extra for the eye, shall we say, to see. And I also put in an anti-glare panel again, which gives something extra to look at, because otherwise it would tend to be a little bit featureless. And the other thing I would say about this is because the M52 had very, very sharp wing leading edges, so sharp in fact that ground handlers would cut their hands on these wing tips here, and we know this from the tests that were performed of this wing section on what's called the Miles Falcon, which became known as the Gillette Falcon, when they were ground handling the aircraft with the M52 wings on it to test the wings. They had to put rubber grips over the top of these leading edges to prevent people from cutting themselves. That's how sharp they were. So it's a good idea to sand these wing sections as well to get some greater sharpness, and I've done that too. You do have to be careful at these edges here, because you will create ridges in the edges where these panel lines are. You can just see those panel lines there. And those ridges will disappear, will appear, I'm sorry, rather than having a straight through edge. But there we are. So in terms of finishing it, I dispensed with using the decals. As you can see, they're all there in their pristine condition, and I didn't add the ident numbers either. What I have done instead is used the Cricut to create some 3D. What am I talking about? Some spray masks, and these are quite straightforward to use. And one of the viewers, I think it was a guy called Jim, asked whether I would show how this worked. And so what we'll do is I'll just put this to one side here. We'll just zero in on that just a little bit so you can see the effect on a panel line. Now the beauty of spraying these things is that the panel line, as you can see, is very well defined, and it allows you to be able to accent the panel line. And sometimes decals don't go right down onto those lines, so I prefer the painted finish. Looks much better for my liking. And the way that I choose to do this is rather after this fashion. So with the Cricut, these are vinyl masks, so they're a vinyl material, and they come off the vinyl backing very easily. As you can see, there's another one next door to it here, and you can just essentially run your knife blade along till it clicks onto the line where you've cut, and just run the blade underneath, and you can pull that up like that, and you can draw the backing away, or draw the mask away from the backing. So the way to do this, and I've just prepared a piece of masking tape here, is you mask just with a piece of tape over the top of the roundel that you want to take. Now what this allows you to do is to pull the lot up all at once, and this is the way I tend to do this. Now I'm not saying this is the right way to do it, but this is the way that I do it. So what I do then is I pull the mask up all together like this, and just draw these things away, and one at a time pull the inner masks up. Once you get to the center one, it becomes an awful lot easier. And with these 1/48 ones, they're quite small. So you've pulled that away now, and there you have it. So what we'll do is, I'll use the back of one of these, I think. No, actually, what we can do is we can use this. Use my bit of tile. So what you would then do is sight your, put that away to one side. You would then sight your mask as you choose it, and set it down like that. And because it's vinyl, it won't stretch so much as kabuki paper masks. And kabuki paper masks you have to be exceedingly careful with, and pick up the transfer tape very carefully, because once you pull the mask away, the mask itself will begin to stretch. So you have to be really, really careful with this stuff. You can get a pair of tweezers there. You can pull this up and get really comparatively little in the way of stretching, so you don't get any overlap or anything like that. So what we can then do is we can pull away that. I'm just going to put that up there, out of the way there, and blue on the first circle, white on the second, red on the third. What I would tend to do then is to, again, we can use the knife blade and wait till and just run the blade as a radius, shall we say, from the center to the outside until you hear the click or feel the click on under your blade, and that's your blade tip hitting the little trench where the cut is, and you can then pull the mask up, and you can see that coming up away there now, and it will fold a little bit, and you can then lift that mask away carefully, be a bit ginger with it, and then this section here is then ready for your blue paint. So you can then paint your blue paint on, keep the paint dry so it's a really light covering, and make certain that you get you get the mask covered. So paint down and outwards like that and inwards like that, so then you get the mask, you get the paint covering up to the mask, but do keep it dry. When you're happy with that one, what you can then do is lift that up and then drop it back in, and it should fit quite happily in there like that, and you can test whether things are going well by looking at the air spaces here, and you can see them there, and we can just essentially lightly move the air spaces, and there is no overlap there that I can see. So you can then go, what I then do with these is I go from that one and I then go to the center one. Actually, I'm just looking at that and I can see there's I got a slight overlap at this side, so we'll need to lift that and go again. When you lift these, by the way, when you have paint underneath them, do be terribly careful. So let's see if we can get this right now. There we go. What I would tend to do with this is I would tend to do it underneath the my magnifier, but I'm doing it, shall we say, freehand today. So that's your first mask down, and then we'll do the same thing with this central one here, which is the red. There we go, and we've lifted that one. So we can lift that one away. We can then paint that one, and then when we've painted that one, we can drop the mask back in. When you're doing multiple masks, by the way, what I've done with and what I did with the M52, because there were six masks, I numbered them all on the inside and the outside, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and where I took a central marking from 6, I put it back on 6, and this way, if there are any tiny register errors in number 6, you keep them with number 6 and you don't compound errors anywhere else. I think it's just a good piece of housekeeping. So with the last one you want to do here is the central, it was the white one, I say the central one, the white section here, and this is the one that you can take out and you don't have to put back, because once you've done the white one, of course it being the last one, you can then lift all of the masks after that. So again, paint that in, outwards, inwards and along and so on and so forth, and once you've done with that, your mask is then completely used, and what you should then have is a roundel that looks like that with no register errors, it hopefully looks quite good. And again, we're viewing this effectively from, I mean, that's from arm's length really, if we look at it, you know, fairly like that, and they look pretty good. The other one that you can also do is the fin flash, Always remember to have the red at the front, obviously, as you know. But I tend to colour the blue, the red, and then the white last. And you leave, that means you leave the white mask in right until the last thing, and you never put the white one back. So that's essentially how that works. The P markings can be a bit fiddly, and I've got an example of some P markings here. We'll just zero in on them so that you can see these. Now you can see here that the cuts are quite difficult because of the way that they're fairly close. What I tend to do with these is lift the sections I don't need, as you can see there. Just ditch that, and I don't need the hole in the P, as it were. So P, by the way, stands for prototype, and was the standard marking used for both captured and prototype aircraft in the mid to late 40s. So essentially from about 1944 onwards to 1947, 1948, that sort of thing. So there you go. So then you have your P marking there. Oh, I've done that the wrong way around. What a P for plonker. That's not how you do it. You leave that D-shaped section in the middle there in, just to show that these aren't edited, these videos. Let's go to this other one here. I did several. So let's drive out that there we go. Drive that bit out. So then we got the rim there. Then we take the P out and leave the central part of the P in, because and you're all out there in modelling land saying, now look here, Zinners, you big arse. That's not how you do it at all. So you then produce a P like that. There you go. So that's better. So I don't look quite such a divvy there, do I? There we go. And then, as it is with the roundels, with the piece of tape, so it is with this. Place your tape on the marking. There we go. And then we can use our blade to just lift up the corner of this. There we go. And then we can start to lift away these markings, and because we've got the transfer tape on there, everything then should come away with it. I'm not being quite so careful from a point of view of time here, really. So I want that central section there. Absolutely, we want that. There we go. So we've dragged that away. We can then place that on the body of our aircraft. We'll line it up with old line at the top there again, and plonk that on there, and draw our tape away, and there you have it. And just basically spray paint that, and it's only one operation to complete that one, of course. And once you remove that, you end up with that, and it looks okay and everybody's happy, hopefully. So that's using vinyl masks. You do much the same with the kabuki paper masks. Nigel's modelling bench has a very good video, a set of 2 or 3 videos actually, that look after using paper masks from One Man Army, which I was very pleased to use on the Qatari 132 scale Spitfire 1A mid that I did back along. Some of you may recall that, but I used the kabuki paper masks for that, and they were really very good. I do prefer using the vinyl masks, even though it's a good idea to make sure just by pressing down on them that they keep stuck, because they can lift. But the fact that these don't stretch, I think, makes them slightly easier to use. So there we are. So that's really completing that side of it, and getting this here thing done. I think that, say, the painted roundels look very effective. They have no real depth in the sense that they don't stand proud from the surface, and there we are. So couple of things really to cover off. I think that the next little project I shall do will be this, the 1/48 Lightning F1 1A. There's a few extras on that one, which those of you who will have watched the review video I did, and it was a couple of years ago now, so it was a little while. Those of you who watched that will know what I'm intending to do. But that will be a slightly longer term project. I'll probably finish the Sherman as well. But before I go, I acquired a little while ago, and I keep forgetting to mention it, but I'm going to mention it now, is I acquired this. Let's try and get the mister-ons to go away. By the excellent Moss Miller, who does the Monday Night Live Airfix and Chill. A dyed-in-the-wool modeler, as any read of this book will tell you. This is a book of his collected thoughts from his Substack, actually. But there's all sorts of things here, and I particularly like this particular chapter. Free time is a terrible thing to waste. Build a scale model. So I think that's a good thing to do, and I think it's full of his own wisdom and his own charm, of which he has in equal number plenty, and I think that's well worthwhile taking a look at if you have 5 or 10 minutes. I think it's available at all good Mister-on free shops. I think Amazon you can buy this at, but do feel free to get hold of one of them. I think it's a very good book. So there we are. So that's Mr. Moss Miller for you. Airfix and Chill. Go and tune in on that. Go and have a look. Sadly for you, I'm on it as well from time to time, so you'll have to tolerate me, but there it is. So look, that's the review of the or the after sales review, if you like, of the Miles M52. It was an Aerocraft resin printed model, went together very easily. Slightly different techniques, but there we go. But the job is now complete, and that can go on the shelf. I will be keeping that and probably put it next door to the TSR2 as well. So there we are. Thank you very much, everyone, for calling in again and visiting. I do appreciate if you've got this far in the video. It's very kind of you to do so. I look forward to seeing you on the next ones, and hopefully you'll be interested by the English Electric Lightning, which I shall assemble, and I shall try to get into some detail on that for you so that you can see how it all goes, at the risk of being boring as I have done for the previous 200 videos, and doing the same thing over and over again. I hope that it does interest you, however, and thank you very much to you all. Take care until the next time. Bye for now.